love, you're listening to the Died on Ashanta podcast. I'm a resilience strategist and migrant integration specialist who has spent the last 20 years traveling, working, and studying throughout the Caribbean, North America, Europe, Africa, and Asia. As a globetrotter, I quickly learned how to bounce back from crisis and how to thrive in new and strange places. I've used my training and experience to develop a resilience-based framework, and now I help others to get over the hurdles that come with living in a foreign country. Now on this podcast, I invite you to join me on this journey of living with simplicity, joy, and resiliency. From green smoothies to goal setting, we'll cover it all. We'll talk about all the things that help us to thrive through the storm. Welcome to the Died on Ashanta podcast. This is episode 25, and today we are talking about rest and resilience. Now, I don't know about you, but it has really blown my mind when I think about the fact that we have spent the last 25 weeks thinking about, talking about different strategies, simple habits, how we can make plans to improve and sustain our personal resilience. And it is very important to me that as we close this season and move into another season of the podcast, that you understand a very important distinction maybe between resilience from a soft resilience approach compared to what you'd say the widespread media or general society thinks of when they hear the word resilience. Now, there is a tendency to associate the whole concept of resilience with endurance, the ability to suffer long, to tolerate stress and strive for a long time. But this is absolutely against what soft resilience is about. When you think of resilience, the images, the concepts, you'd say the approaches that I want to have pop into your mind are those of recharge, of refueling, of resetting, and most importantly, recovering. When we look to the definition of resilience, it's talking about the ability to bounce back from crisis, adversity, setbacks, detours, delays, just general disaster. And the recovery part is the most important. And if you think of recovery, I mean, you can picture someone who has maybe recently had some surgical procedure, or they have come down with a virus and they are taking care of it at home. And what state do you see them in? In a state of rest. They are reclining, they are feeding their bodies, they are making sure that everything is to their comfort, that if they're in pain, they are getting relief. That is the imagery that I want you to hold in mind when you think of resilience. What this means is that you cannot expect to bounce back, to recover, to thrive after a storm if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't consistently recharge yourself, refuel yourself, bring yourself back to a state of reset. It's not going to work. And so that's why we want to talk about rest today. Because for every experience or season of stress or crisis that you encounter, you need to either sustain or engage or increase the amount of rest and the state of recovery that you put yourself in. Now, last week we spoke about the importance of getting those power naps in, kind of like a supplement to the regular daily sleep. And that's because we have all come to understand that we are chronically sleep deprived. just generally the average person, to keep up with the norms and the standards of today's society, we end up with severe sleep deficit. But what it is that I think a lot of people don't realize is that you could end up having a full night's sleep, even going as far as having that daily 10 or 20 minute power nap every day, and still feel exhausted, feel drained, feel like you are easily frustrated, you don't have the capacity to stretch yourself, and you may be wondering, what is wrong with me? Why do I feel like I can't do as much as I should? And that's because rest is not only physical. When we think of sleep, when we think of power naps, we're thinking about physical rest, a form of physical rest. But you may be surprised to find out that there are 7 different types of stress. Of rest, not stress. Well, yes, the 7 types of rest are to help you recover from 7 types of stress. So that little mental slip was really accurate. Yes, so for the 7 types of stress that we could encounter in our lives, there are 7 types of rest. Now, of course, I'm not going to take the time to go into the nitty-gritty of it. You can look up the TED Talk and many articles that have discussed this. In fact, a number of other podcasts have discussed this whole topic of the 7 types of rest. So I won't get into it, but I will mention them briefly. Of course, we already acknowledge that there is physical rest, there is mental rest, there is emotional rest, there is social rest, there is creative rest, there is spiritual rest, and finally, there is sensory rest. Physical, mental, emotional, social, creative, spiritual, and sensory. Now, as much as those words have meaning to you, making the connection between the stresses that exhaust you in those aspects of your life and how to relieve or reset or recharge yourself in that area so you can be rested in those areas of your life, that's something I want to go into a little bit more. Now, one habit that I have used for a very long time without even knowing that it was a recharge habit for my mental state is doing brain dumps. Now, if you don't know what a brain dump is, you simply get a blank sheet of paper and you write every single thought, every to-do item that you could put on a checklist, every reminder that you have, every appointment that you have coming up, all those things that you keep recycling in your brain because you either don't want to forget it, you're trying to figure it out, or it's something that's bothering you. You put it all on a sheet of paper. It doesn't need to be in any particular order. It doesn't need to have any structure or meaning. You just get it all out on paper, and that gives you mental rest. Then there is deep breathing, which we have covered in a previous episode. This is a way of achieving that emotional rest. And so when it is that you can spend the time to, not emotional rest, I'm mixing them up. So the first one, the brain dump, was a mental rest, and the deep breathing was a physical rest. So apart from sleeping, stretching, taking a nap, then deep breathing is a way that you go towards physically resting because you cause your body to slow down at its pace and kind of refuel. Then a form of social rest is when you either, depending on your personality, sometimes you need to go out and socialize, reconnect with people who care about you, and that will make you feel recharged. If, however, you're always out and about and you don't get a chance to get times of solitude, then you're definitely going to need to step away and have time to yourself, and that is your social rest. Then you are talking about emotional rest. That's when you need to find the chance to vent. Have somebody who you can talk to, who respects your boundaries, who cares about you, won't put judgments on you, and that is how you achieve emotional rest. when you think about creative rest, being able to go out and take a nature walk or read a book just for the fun of reading a book. These are ways that you get that creative rest where your brain is not studying something or solving a problem, but just taking a breather and enjoying something simple and creative. There, of course, is spiritual rest, which is how you get a time to fellowship with people who share the same spiritual values, or you may simply take time away to meditate. And then, of course, there is that sensory rest, which you get by unplugging, putting away those devices, turning them on do not disturb. You're not spending time binge watching anything on Netflix or scrolling through social media or listening to a podcast or watching videos on YouTube. You simply put aside all technology, all devices, and you simply just take a break. It might be sitting in a quiet, dark space. It might be soaking in a bubble bath, but it's a time when you unplug and disconnect. So those are some very easy habits that you can incorporate in your life to recharge and reset yourself in these different areas of your life. So I really do hope that you will take the time to incorporate these habits that reduce the stress in these different areas of your life and increase the amount of rest, that feeling of rest that you have, that is not just about sleeping 8 hours a night and taking a quick power nap. So if you are ever wondering about resources, one that I would suggest to you, a book by Valerie Burton, and it's called Life Coaching for Successful Women. Valerie covers a wide variety of topics in this book, but specifically in chapter 18, she asks the question, is it time for a break? And she goes into how we can identify when we are falling apart inside because we are not taking a break. We're not doing brain dumps and deep breathing and unplugging, venting to friends, taking a walk out in nature. We're not spending time to meditate or to have times of solitude or connecting with people who care about us. And because of that, we're feeling aches and pains. We're being easily frustrated. We have mental clutter and all these other things that show up as a sign of you not being rested in these areas of your life. So check it out if you want to explore why it's important to take breaks or to reset and recharge yourself in the various areas of your life. And then finally, of course, is our African proverb for today. And this comes from Namibia. And the Namibian proverb says, that which leaks cannot stay full. That which leaks cannot stay full. So if you are draining yourself, if you have holes in your mental or your spiritual or your creative or any of those baskets, you cannot have that inner strength to keep going when times get rough. So I hope that you will pick one thing to do today, tomorrow, each day of the week that will recharge you, that will allow you to feel replenished, that will plug up those holes in your life that is causing you to be stressed and strained and feeling like you don't have the energy or the will to keep going. So that's my message to you this week. I hope it was meaningful. Please, as usual, give me your feedback. Let me know what you thought of this message. Let me know which of these habits, which of these areas of rest have you been taking care of? Which ones have you been neglecting? And what new habit, restful, recharging habit will you pick up this week? I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again. Have a great day. Thanks so much for listening, love. If you enjoyed this episode, head over to didanashanta.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's message. Be sure to drop your email address so I can send you some helpful resources, updates, and the occasional music video that I may have on repeat. Make sure you subscribe and spread the love with someone you care about.